if you have not watched that video, to watch it. I believe this video has helped me when it comes to talking to others about the existence of God more than anything that I have read so far. There's a book with the same title, The Case for a Creator. There's one for The Case for the Creator. I'm not using that one, but there's the book. This is the study guide, actually, for The Case for a Creator. There's a book with the same title, but for the purposes of our discussion, I'm going through the study guide for The Case for Christ. And so I'm using the video to talk about the Creator. I'm using our discussion through the scriptures and through evidence to talk about Jesus. And so because we're in this discussion about, as we're leading up to the resurrection of Christ that talks about the life of Christ, I wanted to deal with this, but I want to talk about the certainty of a Creator. And then I want to talk about the evidence for Christ. And so with that, before I make the transition, I don't have a lot of time. And so I will probably do a little bit of more this next week before I transition into our next discussion, because I do want to spend some time about the evidence outside of the Bible, because it's easy to challenge by saying, of course, the Bible is going to say the Bible is true, right? Of course it would. I would expect that the Bible would say the Bible is true, or it's arguing against itself. And so it is an easy argument for people to make when you use the Bible to then validate itself. So it is a easy challenge or an easy critique. That would be like me telling you, I'm telling you the truth, and then talk against the truth I'm telling. So everyone expects that the Bible will validate itself. However, what I will also tell you, the same people who will say that, well, they'll argue the contradictions in the Bible. So I'm like, well, all right, so which one is it? Are you arguing that it contradicts itself? Or are you arguing that it validates itself? And what I said to you on last week, the nuances of the details and challenges are there, because without them, we would believe they all colluded to tell the whole story. The nuanced differences actually enhance its credibility and does not detract from its credibility. And I use the example of the accident and all of us watching, and we're all going to see different things. We're all going to emphasize different things that we saw based on what materialized in front of our eyes. We all saw the same thing, but we all see it from a different perspective. And if we all would put in a separate room to write down what we saw, there would be nuanced differences in our story, even though the larger narrative would be the same. There would be nuanced differences in what we talked about, but the narrative of what happened in its larger form would be the same. If we were talking about a car accident, all of our stories would end with a car hitting another car. I believe that part of all of our stories would be the same. But in telling our stories of what transpired and led up to that moment, there would be nuanced differences in all of our stories unless we all sat down together and discussed what we were going to talk about relative to the accident. And if we did that, then people would look to discredit our testimony, because it would look as though we colluded in telling the story. So that's where I'll be with that. So in the historical record, one of the things that we have to do when we are researching is we have to look for evidence that corroborates the story. So even in court, you'll have an eyewitness that'll tell a story. They'll bring in another eyewitness. They'll bring in all of these evidentiary experts to tell us what it means. They'll bring in someone else to corroborate what another person said, because what they're trying to do is they're trying to establish the case, to build their case to create a level of certainty that their story is the truth. And now the prosecutors will do it, and then the defense will turn right around and put other people on the stand who potentially eyewitnesses to what they're saying and corroborating evidence to what they're saying. And they always say in the courtroom, it's not about the truth, it's what you can prove. I don't like that about the courtroom because I'm hoping we're proving what is true. But one of the ways that we establish the case is through corroborating evidence. So what a lot of people have done, and one of the things that Lee Strobel talks about in his research, is that when he looked at the Bible, he did not believe the Bible was true. He didn't believe it was the word of God. Absolutely, he didn't believe that. He was still an atheist. But he was looking for evidence outside of the Bible. And so here's what he wrote. He said, what if there were other biographies of Jesus that have been censored because the early church didn't like the image of Jesus they portrayed? How could I have confidence that church politics haven't squelched biographies of Jesus that were every bit as accurate as the 4 that were finally included in the New Testament, and that would shed important new light on the words and deeds of this controversial carpenter from Nazareth? If the Jesus of faith is not also the Jesus of history, he's powerless and he's meaningless. Unless he's rooted in reality, unless he establishes his divinity by rising from the dead, he's just a feel-good symbol who is as irrelevant as Santa Claus. That was Lee Strobel as he's going into this fact-finding mission to find out if this is truly who everybody says he is. So what does it mean to corroborate? Because that's what this external evidence is designed to do. So writers, and we said Luke is a historian. Luke is not a disciple. Luke is a protege of Peter, but he's writing this story. And so the people who are believers who are writing a story, what corroborates this? Are there other people writing about this? Are there other things out there that are not a part of the biblical written record that corroborate this other stuff? And what he found is that there absolutely is. We talked about a little bit of that last week. So to corroborate means to make more certain or to confirm. To corroborate means to make more certain or to confirm. Corroborative evidence supports other testimony. So the first four books of the New Testament, the Gospels, are a testimony, and this external evidence that I'm going to bring into this discussion will corroborate what they said. And so I'm gonna go into some things, and then I will continue this next week. So one of the people who was a historian, a Jewish historian, his name was Josephus. If you want to write his name down, you can. His name is Josephus, like Joseph, U.S., Josephus. Josephus was a very important Jewish historian of the first century. He was born in AD 37, and he wrote most of his 4 works toward the end of the first century. He was a priest. He was also a Pharisee, and he was somewhat, it says, egotistical. This is the historian Edwin Yamauchi is his name, who's writing about this. But his most ambitious work was called The Antiquities, which was a history of the Jewish people from creation until the first century when he was there. And he completed the work around 93 AD. He was about 56 years old when he created the work. Born around 37 AD, This work was completed around 93 AD. He's around 50 some years old about the time that this is done. But he wrote a history of the Jewish people from creation until his current time. So this is some of the things that Josephus talked about. One quote talks about the convening of a meeting of the Sanhedrin court, brought before them a man named James, the brother of Jesus. This is what they're talking about in the historical record, that there was a meeting convened of the Sanhedrin, and in that meeting, they brought before them a man named James, the brother of Jesus. This is not me saying it's the brother of Jesus. It's Josephus saying it is the brother of Jesus. Brought before them James, the brother of Jesus, who was called the Christ, and certain others. And he accused them of having transgressed the law and delivered them to be stoned.